Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. We're talking about soluble fiber today, and I got some slides, and I have some. I'm going to kind of go back and forth with a few things. So I'm going to start with the slides, though. So welcome, everybody. I hope you're doing okay in this like horrible time that we're suffering from. As if Corona wasn't bad enough, now we have smoke. Well, and we of course pray for the people who are suffering from that. All right. So we're talking about soluble fiber today, and there's soluble and insoluble. I'll show you the difference. But we're talking about how to lower your cholesterol basically in the kitchen, which is why we're eating healthy and doing the things we do, right? Because we want to lower our cholesterol, reduce our risk of having a heart attack or stroke, or keep us from having another one if we already did. So we're mostly focusing today on oats, beans, and barley because those are good, high soluble fiber foods. Now, all fruits and vegetables are generally a little combo of both. And on my slides, you'll see some foods, but that's why those are the things I'm focusing on today, oats, beans, and barley. So we're getting down with oats, beans, and barley. So this is just a little study, Framingham is a huge study, but they took some people, a little cohort, 3,200 people from this Framingham. If you're not familiar with this was back in in Framingham, Massachusetts, and they pretty much studied the whole town. And then they got a lot of heart health data out of it. And then they started going on to their siblings, or not their siblings, their kids, which I can't remember what you call your kids, but those things. So here's a newer study that came out of that, and they took a look at the Heart Association, they call it Life Simple 7, the goals that we have to achieve in order to have reduce our risk of heart disease. And so they found that those who achieved 6 out of 7 of the Life Simple 7 had younger arteries. So that meant that their valves and their arteries and their whole vasculature was aging more slowly. So of course they were healthier and reduced their risk of heart disease. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because we're talking about oats, beans, and barley today and soluble fiber, and that helps for 3 of these at least. So keeping our blood pressure normal, lowering our cholesterol, we need soluble fiber for that. Keeping our blood sugar down, we need soluble fiber for that, or that helps. Staying active, Linda's got you covered on that. Eating healthy, well, that's what we're all trying to do, eating a whole food, plant-based diet. Losing weight, soluble fiber will help with that. And stop smoking, soluble fiber will not help with that, but hopefully we're all not smoking. So people who had these healthier, younger arteries had a 55% lower risk of developing heart disease or stroke. So our talk today on soluble fiber helps out with us reaching these goals. That's the whole point of that. Okay, so foods that raise our cholesterol are all the ones we're trying to avoid. Saturated fats, where we find those? Mostly in animal foods, but also in, when you drop down below there, the tropical oil, coconut, palm kernel oil. Trans fats, those are a fat that kind of gets created when we manufacture some of our fats. So like you'll find trans fats in Twinkies because it's a cheap fat that doesn't go bad very easily. And so we should be Twinkies anyway. And then, so foods that raise cholesterol, all the foods that have cholesterol in them, and like meats, eggs, tropical oils, and whole dairy products. Now, sometimes you'll hear, and I hear it all the time on podcasts, sometimes you'll say, oh no, that's a big lie, saturated fat doesn't really raise your cholesterol. And you know, it always comes down to, yes, it does. Now, eggs are controversial because we always thought, well, maybe eggs aren't that bad, and they might not be, but they're filled with cholesterol. They are associated with cancer risk, and they, even though sometimes some of the studies have shown they don't necessarily raise cholesterol, some of those studies aren't done very well or even done by the egg board. So we're still sticking with the no meat, no eggs, no whole dairy products, because those tend to raise our cholesterol, increase our risk of having a heart attack or stroke. Now, in some of the studies, there was this huge study, I think it was in the 90s too, called the Portfolio study. And they took people and put them on a healthy diet, mostly plants. But what they did was they swapped out foods that were rich in soluble fiber that could also lower cholesterol. And those people had such improvement in their cholesterol levels, it was almost like they were taking a statin. So soluble fiber is the fiber that helps to lower cholesterol. You've seen the Cheerios commercials. You know, Cheerios are made from oats. And said, oh, it dropped my cholesterol. It really does. So oats, beans, barley, and a variety of fruits and veggies. And soy also has been shown to help lower cholesterol. So today we're focusing on the soluble fiber part of it. So soluble fiber, when we eat foods with soluble fiber, when it gets into our gut, it kind of creates this gel. It grabs a hold of things and creates a gel. So by doing that, it blocks cholesterol from being absorbed into the bloodstream. My next one will show a little picture of that. So where we get our soluble fiber, oats, beans, barley, pears and apples are particularly strong in soluble fiber, but really any fruit or vegetable is going to have a little bit. And then psyllium, which is what's in Metamucil, you know, those little seeds. So here's just a little picture of what happens with soluble fiber without. So our liver makes cholesterol, and then from that cholesterol, it also makes bile. We need bile to digest our foods, particularly our fats. And then our stomach, we eat dietary cholesterol if we're eating anything from an animal. All animal products have some cholesterol in it. So the bile, when we digest food, the bile gets into our gut and it helps to digest our fats particularly. And then what happens, and you can see from the little green arrow that goes back up to the liver, we recycle it. We recycle that bile that's made from cholesterol. So our body is sort of designed to recycle the cholesterol. Whereas on the right-hand side, when we have soluble fiber, that bile, which is made from cholesterol, hooks up with the soluble fiber, forms a gel, and then gets excreted. So we're basically excreting our cholesterol. So next time we need to make some more bile, our body's going to call on the cholesterol that's in our bloodstream or throughout our body. So that's the function. So it keeps us from really digesting or absorbing the cholesterol. So we love that. There's some that say it keeps us from making so much too. Now I'm going to stop sharing my slides for a minute because I just want to show you one thing since we're on fiber. And I'm going to just show you, oh, here we go. So soluble fiber forms a gel in the gut. Now there's another kind of fiber called insoluble fiber. So I don't know if you can see, I've got a little cup here and I have a little piece of insoluble fiber. Well, we're pretending. So insoluble fiber is the other one. It actually does attract water. It doesn't make a gel, but it increases our stool bulk. So it helps move things through our intestines and our colon and reduces our risk of colon cancer and constipation and hemorrhoids. So if we imagine this is our insoluble fiber, which think wheat when you think insoluble, and now I'm going to put it into my gut, which is filled with fluid. And so then it's in there, it's doing its thing. And then what it does is it attracts water. And now I should hold it in here a little longer for dramatic effect. And then I pull it out and say, see, everybody sees this, ooh, ah, does everybody see that? So now we've got increased stool bulk. So this was inside us. We have a softer, bigger stool that's easier to pass. So that's what insoluble fiber does. Now, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got enough to think about. I can't think, is this soluble? Is it insoluble? Don't worry about it. We just want to be eating fiber-rich foods, and fiber's only in plant foods. So we eat a bunch of plant foods, we're going to get a good combo of it. Sound all right? Okay, now I have to go back to sharing the screen. All right, go back to my slides. All right, so start with beans. Beans are a member of the legume family. So here's its little family hierarchy. So we got legumes, and then other legumes would be lentils in a group by themselves, peas in a group by themselves, beans in a group by themselves, peanuts, yes, those are a legume like a bean, and then soybeans. So then below beans, you got all the beans that you can think of. Black beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, navy beans. You got them all. Any bean you can think of, dried beans. Not green beans. Green beans are an excellent vegetable, but they're not a fiber powerhouse or full of soluble fiber like our dried beans are. Now, my next few slides I actually got from the Bean Institute, so they're a bit wordy. So I apologize for that. But they had some good knowledge, and I want us to, in a minute, I'm going to break so that we can do our bean quiz so we can figure out which kind of bean we are. Okay, so beans are nutrient rich. Yes, we love beans. They're a good source of protein. They're an excellent source of fiber. They don't have any fat on their own. They don't have any cholesterol because where does cholesterol come from? Animals. So they don't have, so there's no cholesterol in them. They've got iron, magnesium, phosphorus, all the letters of the alphabet in nutrients. And they're a good source of folate. Think foliage when you think folate. So we love our beans. They're an excellent protein swap when we're trying to give up meat. So here, remember I said on that Simple 7 from the Heart Association, they addressed that here, how it can help with weight loss, heart disease, diabetes. So eating beans helps with weight loss. And people who have eat more beans tend to have a lower body weight. But because they're full of fiber, they increase our satiety. That word in the middle there means how full you are. So they make us feel more full because they have got a lot of fiber. That fiber stays in our stomach a little bit longer. So we don't get as hungry, and it helps us to control our appetite. So when they take a look at the studies, and they have a bunch of references here, but when you take a look at studies where people ate carbs, because I know so many of us are a little worried about carbs. We think carbs make us fat, but good quality carbs do not. So diets that are high in good quality carbs and vegetable protein like beans tend to be slimmer. So beans, remember, help us, and all fiber helps us to feel more full. So we love fiber for that. They can reduce our risk of heart disease. So like that picture I showed, it helps us to lower our LDL, our bad cholesterol, and blood pressure too. So I should have had, that's the fourth disease 7, simple 7. Triglycerides, because they're full of fiber. You know, if we have high triglycerides, a lot of times those are associated with processed white flour carbs, not bean carbs. Fiber, when it says it's inversely associated with inflammation, that means the more fiber we have, the less inflammation we have. And beans are an excellent source of fiber. So people who eat beans 4 or more times a week have 22% lower risk of coronary heart disease. That's pretty substantial. And if we're doing a plant-based diet, we probably are having beans at least 4 times a week. And we'll talk about what to do with all those beans. And then for diabetes, beans have a low glycemic index and a low glycemic load, meaning that they don't raise our blood sugar quickly or very high. So people who eat more beans and eat a diet that's low in glycemic index tend to have better blood sugar control. So it helps all of those things. Here's our GI thing. If you've heard of the glycemic index, they compare regular foods that we eat basically to white bread and show how much it raises our blood sugar and then how long it stays high. So high glycemic index foods like white bread really jump our sugars way up, and then we kind of crash. Or let's go back to our Twinkie. So jumps up, then it crashes. Low glycemic or GI foods have a lower rise, so our blood sugar doesn't get so high, and it stays high for a while, meaning that makes us feel more full. So that's another reason why we love beans. Okay, so then if that was enough, beans have been shown to help reduce our risk of cancer. So the American Cancer Society, they're lumping beans into vegetables. So they're saying have at least 4.5 cups of fruits and vegetables every day, which we all should be doing. And they're including beans as one of those vegetables. And they have shown, remember that fiber, now this is not our soluble fiber as much as our insoluble, but it's associated with lower diverticulitis and risk of colon cancer. That's more the insoluble fiber, but still it's fiber, and our beans have a little bit of both. So if you've cooked with beans before, you probably just want to tune out for a minute. If you haven't cooked with beans, here's a little lesson. So you can get canned or you can get dried beans. So either one's okay. When you do canned, you get more sodium, but you can rinse it off. When you do dried, it takes a little more time. So I generally do a combination of both of those. Depending out, if I have something I want to cook right away, I've got some canned beans. But I have dried beans if I can plan ahead a little bit. So when you're doing dried beans though, and I know that makes everybody nervous, and it always made me nervous too, you've got to clean them, rinse them, soak them, and then cook them. And I actually should add a fifth thing. If you've got an Instapot, you don't need to soak them. So you put your beans in a pot, and you've got to clean them out, because when they go pick those beans and dry them out, there might be little rocks and things. So sometimes it's good to put them on a cookie sheet and kind of sort through them. Make sure there's no rocks. I personally have never found a rock, but people have told me they do. And so you got to pick those out, and then you just want to rinse them to make sure they're nice and clean. And then you put them in a pot and you put cold water on it. And then you cook. And you cook them, and they take a while. Down below you can see it says 30 minutes to 2 hours depending on the bean. You stir them throughout. You could add a little water if the water goes away. And I add at the bottom, because this is how I do my beans all the time now, is the Instapot. You just put your dry beans in there, cover it with water, cook, and press B. And I do adjust the time. I will often Google it and say, how long do you cook dried beans in the Instapot if it's a pinto bean or a garbanzo bean or whatever, and it'll tell me. So I'll just do whatever it Googles. But that, I think, is a lifesaver, because you can have dinner on the table in half an hour if you have an Instapot and you're using dried beans. So today, the beans I made, and I don't know if Linda sent this recipe out yet, but it has black-eyed peas. So they're a little different. They're more in the pea category. You don't have to pre-soak those. And you don't have to cook them as long in the Instapot, 15 minutes. Now, if you have an Instapot, you already know this. If you don't have an Instapot, instant is a bit of a misnomer, because it's not really instant. It's just easy. So you put it in the pot, and then it's got to get up to pressure. It's a pressure cooker. That can take 10, 15 minutes. And then it cooks for your time. And then you can either let that pressure come down naturally, or you can just let the steamer out and eat them right away. So it's not really instant, but it's easier than doing the soak. Now, if you also say, oh my gosh, I wanted to have beans tonight and I forgot to soak them overnight, what am I going to do? So it's okay to do a quick soak. And I don't think I have a slide that says quick soak. Do I? No, I don't have a slide. So a quick soak is you put your beans in some water, boil it for 2 minutes, turn it off, let it sit for an hour. That's like pre-soaking overnight. And the reason why you pre-soak is so that the cooking time is less. Otherwise, you just have to cook longer and longer. Okay, so what do you do with beans? Well, you can eat them as a side dish. And I think that's traditionally how we learn. You go to a barbecue and you have baked beans on the side, or some kind of bean. You can put them in soups or stews. So that's what I did today with that recipe that Linda sent me. It's black-eyed peas. So it's a soup. You can add them on top of salads. I gotta say, sometimes that's why I will open a can too, is because I like to just pour some on a salad. You can puree them, so think hummus or a spread of some sort. You can roast them. Garbanzo beans are actually really great roasted. You put them on a cookie sheet and you cook them, and they get kind of crunchy, almost like a corn nut. You can mash them up. So there's lots of different things you could do with it. So I would have to say garbanzo beans are one of my favorites. So some options just for the garbanzo beans alone. If you had 1 can of garbanzo beans, or you cooked up a batch in a pot or Instapot, you can make a salad. And I think Linda sent the salad out last time. It was corn, chickpeas, zucchini salad. You could mash it up and make it into, or puree it and make it into a hummus by adding a little tahini if you like tahini. You could make it into a soup. A lot of kind of curry Indian type soups are made with chickpeas. Falafels, that's the little picture of the things in the pita breads right there. Not hard to make. You just mash it up, blend it up in your food processor or in a bowl, make them into little patties and bake them. Traditionally, they're fried, but you can bake them and they will be awesome. Chana masala is more of an Indian dish using the chickpeas. You can roast them. There's my little roasted ones over on the right-hand side. So, and those are make a great snack. Or you can make chickpea salad. So instead of tuna salad, you use chickpeas. You mash up your chickpeas with a little of that, the soft kind of tofu and some seasonings and a little yellow like turmeric to make it look like it's a, egg salad or got a little color to it. And you've got a sandwich spread. So there's lots of things you can do with that. Now, before I go into my next one, I want us to, I'm stopping sharing so you can see my, oh no, I do want to share my screen. Sorry, I'm going back to it. I have just another place I want you to see my little quiz. This I got from the Bean Institute also. Okay, escape. Come on, I'm not escaping. Well, how am I gonna, I'm gonna end it. There we go, okay. Sorry about that. I always seem to have technical difficulty. All right, if you want to do this on your own, I encourage you to do it. I'm going to do it now with us, so you'll see some of the questions. It's just a silly little thing, but I think it's super fun. So I'm going to take the quiz. So I'm going to answer totally different now because I came up with pinto bean and my husband did, and we had different answers. So I don't know if pinto bean is always the answer. So your perfect first date. So I had put a walk in the park, I think, but now I'm going to go pizza and bowling. And what do you like to do with your free time? Well, do you want to do anything outdoors? Do you want to read a book? Do you want to go to a new restaurant? Hobbies and crafts? Catch up on shows? I don't know. I like anything outdoors, but this time I'm going to go try a new restaurant. And your dream vacation? The beach? That's Cody's dream vacation. A guided tour of Europe? Disney World? Camping? A staycation where you just stay home? I'm going to go camping this time. Your favorite animal? Wolf, cat, dolphin, eagle, dog. I put dog, but I'm going to dolphin since I was just in Santa Cruz and saw all kinds of dolphins. Social media, I do nothing, but this time I'm going to say Instagram. And what do your friends admire about you? That you're hardworking, accepting, consistent, logical, adventurous? I don't know. I'm going to go that I'm just hardworking. Who knows? And my favorite season, summer, fall, winter, spring, all of them? I do love fall. I love this time of year. So I'm going to go fall. Oh, gave me different. So now I'm the dark red kidney bean. Because I'm adventurous, witty, spontaneous, and charming. Oh, yeah, that sounds like me. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of a fun little thing. Also, they have lots of recipes on their website. So if you're thinking, I don't know what to do with my beans, go to that website. They've got a lot of great recipes. So thank you for playing that little game with me. Okay, so let's keep going. So we kind of focused on beans, but let's not forget our oats and barley. So our oats and barley are pretty close to an intact whole grain, meaning it's how it grew. And we didn't do a whole lot to them. They're super high in soluble fiber, and oats have actually done a great marketing on that. Barley must not have a big marketing budget to do that because you don't know about barley at all, or most people don't. But barley is what we grew up with, like beef barley soup. But there's so many other things we can do with it. It's super cheap. You can use it in place of rice of almost any recipe you've got. It takes a while to cook. So you cook it with liquid. Generally, it's 1 part barley to 2 parts liquid, just like a brown rice, let's say. And you cook it for around 45 minutes. So I love barley and oats too. I love both of them. So if you cook up a pot of barley, what in the world are you going to do with it? Well, again, you can serve it as a side dish like you would rice. You can heat up your leftovers for breakfast. Add a little sweetener, add your favorite milk or plant-based milk, add a little fruit, just like you would your oatmeal. You could take your cold leftovers, add some chopped veggies and a vinaigrette, and now you got a cold salad. You could take those same cold leftovers, add a little fruit, like say maybe even dried fruit or mandarins or something like that, in a sweeter vinaigrette. You could throw your leftovers into a soup, a stew, or on top of a salad. So barley is really versatile. It is great to have just a little cooked thing of barley or any grain in your fridge. Now, in the oat world, so we're moving on to oats now, we want to eat intact whole grain. So oat groats are like how oats grew. They have been the most minimally processed and edible that we can have. That is the top dog in the world of oats or any grain really. So oat groats, quinoa, barley, things that haven't been messed with. Now, most of us don't know anything about oat groats, so that's okay. Don't worry about that. I get them in the bin section at Winco, or I'm sure you can buy them online too, or at most grocery stores. I don't know. They're not that popular because people just don't know. You hear of buckwheat groats, but you don't hear of oat groats that often. But then if we I'm sticking with those same oats. I'm not moving down yet. But if we chop up those oat groats a little bit, like cut them in half, now we've got our steel cut oats. Take a little longer to cook. Oat groats take the longest. Then we got our steel cut, take a little longer. And then if we steam those and roll them out, we've got our old-fashioned rolled oats that we all know and love. So any of those are good, but to get the most fiber, the most chewing, the slowest digestion of those, it would be the groat. But any of them are fine. So don't panic if you think, oh my gosh, I love my old-fashioned rolled oats. They're still fine. But if you take that whole grain, whatever it is, and you break it up a little bit, now you've got bulgur. Bulgur is what they make tabbouleh out of. Bulgur is pretty easy because you just add boiling water to it and let it sit for a few minutes. Then we can steam it and roll it like we would oatmeal. Or we could process a little more of it and now make it into, say, shredded wheat. So we shred it. Or we can grind it up like we would into whole wheat flour. In fact, no, never mind. Forget that. Forget I just said that. We could flake it into like a cereal. So you can see we're getting more and more processed as we go. Or we could puff it up. And now we've got a puff cereal. All of these are good. And the fiber changes minusculely along the top few. But it's a little, oat groats are the least processed. So whatever you like, you do you. Sorry, I'm going to unshare again for a minute before I go into that. I just want to show you a couple little things. So with my oats, I like to use a steel cut. Now I get them in the bins. I'm tipping this so you can see my little containers a little bit. I get them in the bins and I come home and put them in my little jars. So I've got some steel cut and I have some barley here, almost out of my barley. So you've probably all heard of overnight oats. So overnight oats are just when you soak them. Now you can do it with your old-fashioned rolled oats. You can do it with your oat groats. I tend to do it with my steel cut. And so this is a little recipe. It's not even a recipe. It's just how I do it. I got it from somewhere. I use 1/3 cup of my steel cut. And then I do a couple tablespoons of my barley. I might have that left here. Oh yeah. Okay. And then I add 1 1/4 cup of water to that. And then I use a bowl. This is a 1 quart, I call it a batter bowl. I know it's pamper chef thing, but you want to use a pretty big bowl because I'm going to soak this in 1 1/4 cup fluid overnight in my fridge. When I get up in the morning, I stick it in the microwave for 2 to 3 minutes until it's the texture I like. And then I'm going to add all the things that I love in my oatmeal. I'm going to add some raisins. I'm also going to add a little chia or flax to it. I'm going to add a little maple syrup to it. And then my breakfast is done. So if you're thinking, well, I really want something fast in the morning, and so that's why I do, say, instant oats. Well, this is really fast. You just have to put it in there the night before. So I wanted to show you that. And then I want to show you just this soup that I made. Linda provided me with the recipe, and it called for the black-eyed peas. Now, I had some dried black-eyed peas, and I just threw them in the Instant Pot this morning and used that. But you can also, I like this, that you can use this frozen black-eyed peas too. These were $1.98 at the store. Today I had to go to Raley's, which I know is an expensive store, but it was the closest one and all I had time for this morning. But I probably paid less than probably 75 cents for my dried one. So you do save money if you go dry. And then in the seasonings, this is just makes a soup. So I had an onion and I threw in a little garlic and sauteed those up. And then I just added, I used canned tomatoes because I didn't know if my little market down the street was going to have tomatoes, but as it ended up, they did. But I used some canned tomatoes. And then my seasonings are a little chili powder, a little smoked paprika. So I have this dried cilantro, which I really love, so I sprinkled that in there, but it also calls for fresh cilantro. Some cumin. I had some, a different kind of, this is chili de arbol. So I thought, oh, I'll try to throw that in there too. And then a little oregano. And you mix that, and it also called for corn. And so you could use frozen corn or fresh off the cob. So I actually use fresh off the cob, and I want to show you, all I have is my dead cob left, but I just want to show you my little gadget, because I do love my gadgets. So this one, if you hold it up to your corn on the cob and just slide it down, it just cuts off all your corn. And you might say, well, I could do that with a knife. And you're right, you could. But this just is really fun. So I like my little peeler that I use for my corn. So, okay, that's it. Oh, and then my soup, let's see if my soup's over there. I think I'm going to pull my soup over here so you can see it. Let's see if you can see it. I have to tilt it. Anybody see it in there? Okay, so I've got my black-eyed peas, my tomatoes. Oh, I chopped up a red pepper and put that in it too. My onions, little garlic, my corn. What a pretty colorful dish that is. Super high in my soluble fiber from all my black-eyed peas. So I know Linda has that recipe, and if she hasn't sent it out, I bet she will, because she is amazing that way. It cooked for about 25 minutes. Because I hadn't used the frozen black-eyed peas. I used the ones that I had just cooked. Okay, so back to sharing. All right, sorry, we are a bit disjointed today. All right, so oats, beans, barley, soluble fiber, the kind that forms a gel, helps to lower our cholesterol. And then if we want to add to that some other things that we could do to reduce our risk of heart disease or treat heart disease or diabetes. I've done this before, but I still think it's a valuable thing to remember. Try to get at least 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. All the colors, organic when you can afford it. Get rid of refined carbs. Remember, when we refine our grains, we lose the fiber. And generally, we don't eat just a bowl of white flour. It also has oil and sugar and salt and other things in it. So we want to try to go whole, intact grains when we can. We want to boost our fiber. And, you don't have to count it, but we want to aim for 15 to 20 grams per meal. And choosing the soluble fiber, that sometimes they'll call that viscous too, because it makes it thick like a gel, as much as possible. Those are oats, beans, and barley right there. Aim for those low glycemic index foods, which are going to be our starchy veggies. Our starchy veggies are corn, potatoes, peas. Nothing wrong with those. They just have a few more calories. And our legumes or our beans. Watch portions of those starchy vegetables and grains, especially if you've got diabetes, you're controlling your blood sugars. You want to just keep checking your blood sugars, make sure things are looking good. And be careful when you select those grains. It's totally fine to have whole intact grains. And grains have been shown to help even lower your risk of diabetes. But this is the thing. People think they have that granola bar, and it's not like having oatmeal. So we want to have the whole intact grain. Already lost my mouse. There it is. Okay. Get rid of animal products. And if you're not ready for that, at least processed foods and red meat. At least. But we want to phase animal products out. Eat those beans and legumes every day. They come in so many different forms and so many different types of beans. We can do a lot of different things. Stick to whole foods, and that means particularly in our fats. We're trying to go oil-free because that's a processed fat. So when we have fat, we want it to be the whole real deal. Nuts, seeds, soybeans are a little higher in fat, olives. So stick to whole real foods. Make sure we're getting antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods. Those are going to be our colorful, and I think we talked about this maybe even last time, fruits and veggies. The more colorful, the better. And sprouting is really a great thing and so easy to do. When you sprout, like I have sprouted little mung beans, I've sprouted garbanzo beans from the dry. I just got online some broccoli sprouts, which are super, like one of the highest antioxidants that we've got, and or contain the most. And so when you sprout things, they have even more antioxidant power. And if you haven't sprouted before, it is so darn easy. I guess you could order some big fancy thing. But basically, I put a couple tablespoons of whatever that seed is in my little jar. And I rinse them first, and so they're kind of wet. And I put on top of it some cheesecloth so air can get in and out. And then I rinse them a couple times a day. And in just 2 or 3 days, they're starting to sprout. You can practically watch it happen. Super fun. We want to minimize the foods that actually cause oxidation, cause that internal rusting, like fried foods, animal foods, those kind of things. And we want to try to get to and maintain a healthy weight because a lot of our health risk is associated with excess weight. Okay, so here's your challenge this week. Cook up a pot of beans or barley really every week. I think it's great. Try to have oats most days of the week. Try different beans. You know, there's a world of them out there. Try different intact whole grains. You know, if you go to a store and look in the bins, like Sprouts actually has quite a nice selection. I love Winco, but they've got bulgur, farro, millet, quinoa, buckwheat, all kinds of strange grains. Some we've heard of, some we haven't. Try something new. And then create some recipes for those beans and grains by looking at Google or looking on some certain websites. Like the Bean Institute, like I said, has some really good recipes. They're not always low fat, and they're not always free. So you can make little adjustments on that. Okay. And so we're trying to lower our cholesterol with our fork and knife. So the food you eat can be the safest form of medicine, or it could be the slowest form of poison. So we don't want to have no poisoning, none of that. Okay, stop and sharing. And tell me, any questions, any things you want to talk about? I haven't looked in the chat, so I'm sorry if there's chat.
Yeah, I want you to say something about people who can't eat beans. So
who can't eat beans?
Are they better off to eat more barley then, or do they tolerate that better if they, for some reason, beans are rough on them, or what's?
Okay, you know what? I didn't even talk about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Beans they cause gas, and for some people, it's really hard for them to digest. And a lot of people, because maybe they got gas the last time that they had beans, they think, I just can't eat beans. So first of all, I'd say, I bet you can. We just start with less beans and work our way up, because what happens is the bacteria in our gut are able to work on the beans, and the byproduct of them working on it is gas. So that's why when we eat beans, they're the magical fruit or whatever, musical fruit. And I bet we could. But if we're not going to eat beans for whatever reason, then yeah, eating barley and eating oats is going to be a great thing to do. But I wouldn't just say just because they give you gas that you can't have beans. I would say try a smaller amount. You can also degas your beans by, especially if you're soaking them, you soak them overnight, dump out that water, rinse them off. Then a lot of the gas producing components get washed off, and then you cook your beans. So sometimes that helps. But yeah, I'd say barley and oats would be the next best thing. Okay.
And in general, people that can't tolerate beans can usually tolerate barley, right?
Yeah. Although I think all those whole grains are going to make you fart. They just do. You know, and after a while, I think last time we talked about gut bacteria, right? So those gut bacteria start adjusting to your new way of eating, and then you're going to develop ones that are going to make it more tolerable for you. So don't give up. Just start small amounts. And I see a question in here about crockpot. Crockpot's a great way to do it too. I never have the patience or forethought to do the beans in a crockpot, but a crockpot is awesome. Yes. Oh, and that's what I love about my Instant Pot too, because it's a crockpot and a pressure cooker, well, and a rice cooker all in one.
How long would you use the crock pot? I don't plan on getting any other kitchen instruments at this point in my life.
Well, I think you cook them like 6 to 8 hours on low.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And lima beans. Can water from the beans be used as aqua something? Oh, okay. Lima beans are excellent source of fiber, so I love the lima bean. And yes, your chickpeas, particularly, it's every bean, but for some reason the chickpea or garbanzo bean has been the most popular. And I've never tried it with anything else. But when you drain that can of beans, put it in a colander, have it go down into a bowl, and you get the liquid from the can, and they call it aquafaba. That's Aquafava. And that aquafaba has some interesting qualities. So it can actually act as an egg replacer in recipes. You can add some sugar to it and blend it up and make it like a meringue. But my experience has been you need one of those fancy mixers, because just my regular hand mixer didn't do a whole lot to it. But it'll whip up into a meringue, and you can use it in desserts. And you see it a lot in recipes now. I recently made some vegan brownies, and it called for the aquafaba. So whenever I have canned garbanzo beans, I always drain it and hold on to that. I even freeze it sometimes in half cup or whole cup portion.
But if the purpose is to drain it because of the salt, getting rid of the salt, you're just putting the salt in something else.
You absolutely are right. But if you start with the low sodium or no salt added ones, you have less salt. But you're right, you're getting the salt.
But if you cooked them yourself, you could use the bean water from your pot, right?
You can. And I have not done that, but they say you can. But I'll tell you, I would be really curious how it would work, because when I do them in the pot, that stuff isn't as thick that comes out. So my liquid is not nearly as thick as what comes out of my can. So I'd be curious if anybody's tried that. I don't know. That's something you would do, John. Have you tried that?
I haven't tried it. I saw a mention of it where once you've pulled your beans out of the water, you let it reduce another third, and then you get the concentration. But I've taken regular bean water and thinking I'd make aquafaba and put it in the fridge. The next day, it's almost gelatin-like.
Oh.
So there may be something there. I usually think, no, I don't think so. I think I'm no dessert for me.
It's not appetizing.
No.
It really isn't. No. But I have seen it used recently, and I've tried it in some recipes, like for hummus, let's say, and use some of the aquafaba instead of adding fat, or egg replacer too.
So Debbie,
Yeah. Hey there.
hi. If you have white dried beans and you don't remember how long you've had it, how long do you know it's safe to cook them in the jar?
I personally keep using them. I've used some that are like probably over a year old, but I think you can tell I don't know that you can tell just by licking them, but when you cook them, they take longer to cook and they're harder. They don't get as soft. That's what happens. But that's a good point. I get all my grains and beans. I get dry beans and I put them in a bunch of jars. And then I pour it out into my recipes. And then I always end up with just a little bit left of all of them. And then I combine all those and make a soup.
Okay,
So I
thank
think
you.
that's good. And so I see here a question, the overnight oats seem like more than one serving. And usually a third cup is a serving of the steel cut. And the barley added a little bit more, but I think that is one serving. If it's in, I eat it out of this big, huge bowl, so that's probably not a good indicator of portion size. But I think it's one serving. I'll calculate the calories on it and let you know. But if it's too much, then you split it up into two. That's okay. Yeah. You can also just do a big serving and cook it up like in your crock pot or Instant Pot or whatever you got, and then you save it for the week and you just eat a little bit every day. That works too. And what else we got? Anyone?
I'll just add that oatmeal works really well. I use steel cut oatmeal and make 4 servings worth, and it lasts, 3, 4, 5 days, depending upon if I have it both for breakfast and for dinner. But after a week, I would dump it. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I'm that way too. For leftovers, for some things, especially I might say like 4 to 5 days, and then I get rid of it. But yeah, I've eaten my oatmeal. I've done one for every day of the week. You're right, for 5 days, not 7, 5.
Have you tried cooking with chickpea flour yet?
Yes, I have. I've done the omelet with chickpea flour.
What'd you think?
I loved it.
And it's fibrous, not eggy, or
Yeah.
not the absence of fiber.
Yeah, you're right. I do love the chickpea flour, and I've made something else with the chickpea flour. Oh, my falafels that I have made have been with the chickpea flour. And yeah, I like that.
I shared that recipe with my brothers who have responded enthusiastically. They're done with sweet breakfasts. They're going with savory now, and that's a wonderful way to start.
Oh, that is so good. And I know some of you all have taught me that I could do my oatmeal savory, and I have just not been able to do it. But they could definitely just throw some greens into that, and that would be great. I just haven't been able to get into it. To me, oatmeal is supposed to be kind of sweet, and I'm going to challenge myself to do that before I see you all next.
Can you share with Linda to share with us a good falafel recipe, please? You said you mentioned you baked them. So
Yeah.
Oh, maybe John, I don't know if you were there, Elaine, when we actually made falafels, not out of garbanzo flour, but I've actually ground up dried chickpeas, and we cooked them in the waffle iron.
It was good.
I vaguely remember the waffles, but I don't remember seeing how it was done.
Yeah.
I made those at home too. Those were amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. But I have a falafel recipe too. I'll send.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is using chickpea flour, or what is it using for?
It uses chickpea flour, and I did just what John said. There was no chickpea flour to be had at the store, plus it cost an arm and a leg. And so I just blended up some dried chickpeas.
Okay.
If you have one that doesn't involve chickpeas, that would be good too.
Okay.
My recipe came from Israeli Soul, and he has a video of making it, Michael Solomonoff. And it is the raw chickpea with raw ingredients, and you just throw it in your waffle iron, and we found a Belgian waffle iron does the best. And then
That's what I use too.
have a good tzatziki, which you can make with tofu and cucumbers and lemon, and a little garlic sauce of some sort, and then greens galore and tomatoes, and happiness reigns.
Exactly. And that's a fun way to do it in the waffle iron because, you know, otherwise you're shaping them and waiting for them to bake. So, but yeah, I'll send mine. You send yours, John. We'll try it. Anything else? Paul, did you have a question about tamales?
About what?
Tamales?
Oh, when you were saying uses for beans, because I've
Yes.
been buying. I know I should try to make it one day, but I've been buying black bean tamales
Uh-huh.
at the farmers market in Midtown on Saturdays. So, because that's the only vegan thing she has.
That's
'Cause-
excellent.
Yeah, so they're really good. I wish it was less cornmeal masa, but you know, it's still good.
Yeah. And I've made those. One Christmas, a friend of mine came over and we like spent all day making the black bean tamales. Yeah, those are really good. And it's really great to find vegan ones because it's hard to find them.
Yeah, at least I hope they're vegan.
Yeah, you just hope and pray. I know.
Yeah. Can you make cookies out of black bean too? Because I thought I was someplace where they made some kind of cookies or something using black bean.
It's popular in brownies.
Brownies, that's what it was, brownies.
Yeah, I've used garbanzo beans in cookies, but black beans in brownies, and it's used as a fat substitute. And I think, Linda, you might have that recipe too. If you don't, I'll send mine. But it is just using a can of black beans. And you know what? It became very popular because I think Dr. Oz or somebody did it on one of their shows. So it became quite popular. But because they're dark and full of fiber, you don't know that there's a black bean in there. So that's a good idea. I'm gonna have to try some of those.
On the beginning of your slide presentation about you had a whole bunch of like blood pressure was one of them.
Right.
I belong to Kaiser, so I used to go to the drop-in for my blood pressure reading because I don't have the blood pressure thingamajig.
Uh-huh.
So if I purchase one, do you comfortable making a recommendation on what kind or brand or anything, or it doesn't really matter?
You know, my experience with them, and I actually recently just had to throw mine out, and it still said Long's Drug on it. It was that old. But I like the Amaran brand, and I like the ones that have an arm, not the wrist ones. I have not found the wrist ones to be as accurate. So if it's got a little arm thing. But the thing is, if you're doing your blood pressure at home, and Linda or the nurses or anybody can probably tell you this too, you got to sit down quietly and have your arm kind of equal with your heart and not move or talk while you're having it done and not cross your legs and have your back supported. So you want to have a good posture because sometimes if we're doing it and we're doing it wrong, you get a false reading.
Okay. Do I have to take a 2 out of 3?
Yeah.
Paul, Rite Aid had a really nice selection when I bought mine about 6 months ago, and I got an Omron, O-M-R-O-N. It was the middle price range of the 3 or 4 that they had, and it is the one that had a memory, has a memory that you can go back to, and I specifically found what Debbie said is that if I just sit down, take it, it's totally different than if I sit down and I sing happy birthday a bunch of times or I sing a couple songs that I've sung from being on stage with, comic opera. And so I sing a couple of those. I've figured out the ones that'll add me up to 5 minutes. It makes a significant difference. So now if I don't have 5 minutes to relax or not in the mood to relax, I don't take it until later. There's a little bit of difference for me. There's a little difference for me taking it time of day, first thing in the morning after breakfast or in the evening, but not that much. The big difference seems to be if I wait at least 3 to 5 minutes once I've sat down and I put the arm thing on. So
how do you spell that brand again? A what?
A-M-R-O-N. I'm going to turn on my video so video. Let's see if I can do it. This is,
It's an O. It starts with an O.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was a middle price range, and I think it was somewhere between $60 and $70. I'm not, don't quote me on the price, but when I called around to see who had the best selection, it seemed like Rite Aid, which happens to be around the corner from where I live, had the best selection. And a friend just took me over there, and I've been very happy with it. And I don't please easily on stuff like this.
All right, thank you.
You know, as this is Eileen France, this is Wes's wife. I'm an RN, and these things have their place, but you have to be very cautious with automatic cuffs because they can be grossly inaccurate. And if you're basing your medication on automatic ones, that can be, you know, a trouble. So my suggestion is that if you can have someone at least check a manual with your automatic and make sure they're somewhere in the same area. With the results would be the better thing to do.
I took mine in, and my doctor, I used that, and my doctor did it, you know,
A manual?
simultaneously. Yeah, he did it manually.
Perfect.
And so it sort of calibrated.
Yeah.
They were very close. It was surprising.
And that's for anyone,
Good
not just
idea.
your unit, but any unit. It's probably a wise idea. I mean, even as an RN working, using automatic cuffs in the emergency room and in the ORs, they were even off from a manual. The only really accurate one is a manual, but they're getting better. So that's just my suggestion, is just to be cautious. Don't depend everything on your automatic cuff. It's certainly better than nothing, but it can be misleading.
Yeah, bring it with you to the dock.
Yeah.
Right. Good point.
The new Consumer Reports, that's I think it's September, has a rating on page 18 for the Omron Silver 5250. That is their top score. And it's a $50 machine. So something possible. Certainly the brand seems to be reliable.
Yeah.
Is manual pumping it yourself, or what is a manual one?
Pumping mercury.
It's like what the nurses do when they put it around your arm and they squeeze the little ball and it pops
Oh,
out.
okay.
They're listening.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was, but the Omron, the basic one, I got the Next Step Up. There was something about it that I really preferred the Next Step Up, and I figured I didn't plan to buy a machine that often, that for the extra, I think it was $20 over the simple
bad.
one. And it might have been the memory. I don't remember what it was, but I sat in the store. My friend was sitting there laughing and tried each one on. So I'll keep quiet now.
Thank you.
Okay. Linda, anything else?
No, awesome job as always.